So how is it you can keep going about creating your reality when everything seems to be going wrong? Many people, when they first learn that they have the ability to influence their reality, to create their reality through many of the things we go over on this channel, they begin to learn this, and yet despite applying it, despite really doing the things that we're going over, they find that they take one step forward, but then one step back. And when this happens, many questions start to pop up in their mind, like, does this even work? Or what am I supposed to do now that everything seems to be not working for me? Or it seems like a few good little things happen, but then all this chaos comes up. Or even bigger things will happen, like it looks like I'm going to lose my job, or I'm losing some money, or I'm losing a relationship. How do I continue to create? How do I continue to stay centered and focused on what I'm doing with all of this when this stuff is occurring? Well, this video is going to be addressing this specifically. How can you continue to create? How can you continue to stay tuned into all of this when chaos is coming up in your life? When everything, again, is seemingly going wrong? Now, I'm going to be going over why this happens and why this is actually a natural part of the process that kind of has to occur for you to get into the next level in your life, or to create at that next level you want to in your life. I'm going to be going over exactly what you need to do when this scenario comes up so that you actually move through it with grace and come out the other side not only unscathed, but at a whole different level. And as always, I'm gonna give you some of the best tools that are gonna help you to do this, to make this very, very practical, so that it's not just information, but it's actually going to give you some things that move you closer to transformation, because information and transformation are two completely different things. And why it's so crucial to understand what we're gonna be going over in this video if you want to create reality as you see fit, if you want to start living the life you want to live, is because this is really one of the main things that trip people up on this journey, that cause them either to quit and to just put up with the life they currently have even though they don't enjoy it, or to continually take one step forward and one step back instead of stepping powerfully into that new life that they want to be in. And so again, in this video, I'm going to be showing you what to do when everything seems to be going wrong, when you are sticking to these principles, how to really come through that chaos and be better for it on the other side, being much closer to that which it is you actually want. So let's jump into it. So first things first is that there are quote unquote typically two ways in which things can go wrong. Now there is the first way, which I'll describe briefly, and then the second way, which is what we're going to be learning how to overcome or move through more in this video. Now the first way is you are just sending out a negative vibration most of the time. This means that you're entertaining negative emotions most of the time, you're lower on the consciousness scale as far as where you live most of the time, your thoughts are mainly negative. So if you're in this kind of stage, or you see someone in this kind of stage, well, of course you're going to draw back, things that you don't want. You're going to have things come in that match the vibration that you are sending out. Like the quotes say, you get what you think about most of the time. You get what you feel about most of the time. And so if you're thinking negatively, if you are feeling negatively most of the time, life is going to continue to bring things that are going to cause you to continue feeling that way. So that's not what we're mainly talking about in this video, although I have other videos that can certainly help you with this if it is something you are going through. But we're going to be talking about the second type of way that things can go wrong. And in this second way, you actually will find that you've been doing a lot of positive things. Let's say you've been focusing on what you want. You've actually been taking steps forward towards your goals. Maybe you've been doing a really good job of thinking correctly or positively, feeling really good now, keeping up with really good habits that build certain things in your life. Let's say you've been doing that for even like a few weeks, maybe even a few months. And then for whatever reason, some things start to come up, some chaos starts to come up, a storm in your life starts to come up, and you wonder to yourself, how come this is happening? I thought if I thought positively, I thought if I thought about what I want, I thought if I felt good most of the time, I thought if I stayed in alignment and followed that most of the time, then things wouldn't go wrong. It would just be more and more positive things coming through. I thought if I took inspired action, good things would come into my life. Now, I will explain in a second why it is this seemingly wrong thing, this thing that you don't want, will come up, and it can come up in many different forms. It can come up in you've been doing the work and then suddenly you lose your job, or someone close in your life maybe leaves your life or doesn't want to be your friend anymore, a relationship, etc., etc. Maybe you lose a little bit of money or something else, some kind of thing that you would not deem as necessarily positive happens even though you've been staying true to these new habits, this new way of thinking, of focusing on what you want, etc. But ultimately, what we want to do is learn how to embrace this chaos, to weather the storm and stay grounded. And that is when this new level of things will start to come into your life. This is when the 2.0 you will start to be there. This is when you start becoming who you need to become. It is on the other side of that storm. But what most people do is they do this stuff for a little bit, they're thinking positively, they're getting motivated, inspired, they're taking the inspired actions, they're doing all the stuff we listed before. They're taking those steps forward, and then the chaos starts coming up. Those same people get scared, they get frightened, and then they take a step back and they go back into the old habits, behaviors, and everything else. They go back down into that more negative spiral that they're trying to transcend because this storm is here. And the negativity, for the most part, has been their comfort zone. So they might even go back into a similar job. They get into another relationship that's kind of the same thing, maybe just a different person, or they go back to a relationship they don't really want, but they make it work, for example. And this is what commonly people do. And a lot of people can be on this seesaw or this perpetual loop where they're doing this all the time and not really making much progress because they take some steps forward, feel pretty good, but the chaos comes up and then they step back into the old life. And then they're feeling pretty bad. They don't like that. So they start taking steps forward again, but then back again. And so we ultimately want to get out of this loop. Why does this storm come up? Why is this happening? And there's usually a few very simple explanations. And one of the main ones I like to tell people, because it usually is the reason, is that life is simply clearing out things that no longer will resonate at this new place you're going to. So you lose a job? Yes, because that job is not going to support you in this new place you're now going to be if you weather that storm. You lose a relationship? Yes, because unfortunately that person's not going to match where you're going. And if you don't leave the relationship or it doesn't end, you'll stay in place. Oh, you've lost some money? Yeah, that's the same thing, because there needs to be something that comes through from that you would then, where you need to actually lose that money. Maybe you need to see yourself as so abundant even when you're losing some on the outside, right? All of these things have a purpose to see almost if you're ready for that next level. So it will start clearing out things at the old level, the old identity, to make room for the new. But ultimately, it is embracing this bend in the river, embracing this chaos that's going to get you to that next level. But this is one of the main reasons. It is clearing something out to make room for the new. Now, I've gone over what's called the law of balance before, and just to give you a very quick explanation of the law of balance, I'll play you a clip from another video just so you have a little more context. Life is always trying to maintain balance and harmony, but again, maybe not in the ways that you think, because you might think, well, how can that be the case? How can it, especially with that word harmony, always be wanting to maintain harmony? Because I look out at the world and all these atrocities are happening that I'm looking at, and this thing happened to me, etc., etc. And what it's really doing is maintaining balance and harmony on all three planes of existence, and it means balance and harmony between the spiritual, mental, and physical planes. And I'll explain what that means. And just if you are unaware, as a human being, as a spiritual being in a human body, if you want to put it in that way, you have three planes of existence that you are operating on at all times. You have the physical one, which most people are down with. They understand, oh, I'm in a physical body, I'm in this physical world. And some people cut themselves off there. They're like, well, that's all I am. I'm just physical. There's only the physical world and my five senses, etc. Then there's the mental plane of existence. And some people, a lot more people than what we're going to go over on the third plane of existence, but they'll buy into the mental one, like, oh, I have thoughts, I can picture things in this thing I have called a mind. Okay, so there's a mental plane of existence where I have thoughts, I can envision things, etc. And we also have a spiritual plane of existence. This is what connects us to that which we actually are, to divinity, if you want to say it that way, or source, or the all. Essentially, this is also the energetic realm. This is the emotional realm, energy in motion. And as a human, you are operating from all three of these planes at the same time simultaneously. So you're not just moving in the physical plane, moving through time and space, but you are also doing things in the mental plane of existence through what you're thinking about and those projections you're sending out there. And as the Kabbalion and Hermetic wisdom would say, everything is mental, the all is mind. And you also have a spiritual plane of existence, which is energetic, vibration, frequency. And again, that connection to what we call source, or we can call it infinite intelligence, or we can call it the all. Some people call it God, whatever you want to call it. And the thing to understand is that all of these planes, they are not separate. They are not acting on their own away from each other. They're actually all in correspondence with each other. If you've ever heard the saying, as above, so below, and as below, so above, that's where this comes from. It's called the principle of cause and effect, and it happens on all three planes. And what that means is one thing happens on one plane, it will influence and affect the other planes of existence. They always line up eventually. They're in correspondence. Now, to just give you a very simple example of how this works, let's say you think thoughts of negativity a lot. That's whether consciously and unconsciously, probably unconsciously. But let's say you do what we call catastrophize, which means you think of the worst possible thing that could happen when you're focusing on something. Oh, I'm going to go do this, and what if I spill my coffee, and what if that person rejects me, etc., etc. So let's say you're doing that on the mental plane. Let's say, because of that, because you're thinking that way, on the spiritual plane, emotionally, you're feeling pretty terrible. You're not feeling great at all. And so the mental and emotional plane are in line there. And what's going to happen is you're going to get the effect of those causes on the physical plane. You'll notice that someone who complains all the time or thinks negatively all the time very rarely has positive things, what we consider positive things, happen to them. Rarely has amazing opportunities coming in. Rarely has like uplifting people in their life, etc., etc. Because there are people, for example, who will do the exact opposite. They will think positively, genuinely, heartfeltly, if that's a word, most of the time. They will feel good most of the time. Doesn't mean they always do, but most of the time they train themselves to do that authentically and genuinely. And you see this kind of person who has all this abundance in their life and all this love. It doesn't mean harmony in the sense of like everything's so peaceful and everything. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what that means in this context. Unless, of course, you are thinking that way, feeling that way, and then it will harmonize in that way on your physical. But when we're saying balance and harmony, that's what we mean. Harmony, in this case, isn't necessarily positive. It just will match up and correspond to what you're doing on these other planes of existence. Outer world, which represents your physical, follows the inner world. The spiritual and mental planes of existence represent the inner world. This is your thoughts. These are your visualizations, your imaginings, things of that, your imagination, which is such a powerful tool, your intention, your attention, where you put that on what you put that in your mind's eye, your emotions, energy in motion, what you're entertaining most of the time. The outer world is going to start following that. What do you think about and what do you feel most of the time? That is what's going to create a balance of either what we call positive or negative on the physical plane. A harmony of whatever, harmonizing with positive stuff or negative stuff. And again, I'm using these very general terms where we can insert many different things on that spectrum, but just to keep it simple, it will either harmonize and balance with the positive stuff that you've been maintaining in the inner world, or if it's negative stuff, it'll do the same. It doesn't care which. Now, the way we like to put this in kind of our reality creation program, where we take people on this 6-month journey to help them to ultimately embrace the chaos, get to that next level, shift their identity, and start living the life of their dreams, is we talk about embracing the bends in the river of life. And again, I'm going to play you just a quick clip that really illustrates this so beautifully, that's going to allow you to grasp this concept. So I'll play that now. Now next, it's not just letting go, but embracing the bends in the river. And I can make a whole video on this, and I probably will, but I'm going to give you essentially the cliff notes of what this means. And again, this is so crucial and what just causes so many people to get stuck or not progress. And so you've heard this analogy before from me if you've been here for a little bit, but let's say you're on the river of life and you're kind of flowing with the river. Well, it's very easy to allow life and yourself to co-create and kind of continually move to this channel and what's next for you when there's a strait in the river and it's calm and you're just kind of floating away very kind of nicely and calmly, and you feel good, and you kind of look up and you see everything in front of you. You can see what's coming up. You can see everything that's there. But what happens when you inevitably get to what's called a bend in the river? And every river is like that. You know, life is non-linear, meaning you're always going to have a bend. Now, the bend is more scary because you don't know what's on the other side of that bend. There might be rapids, maybe the water's speeding up, there's some challenges coming up, and you don't know what's on the other side of the bend. It was lovely when you were just on the straight and everything was known and you could see how everything was unfolding and you had all the information and it was relaxing and you felt good, but here comes this bend in the river. Now, this is when most people start to panic because life is leading them to the unknown. And when you're co-creating with life, when you're operating at higher levels, you embrace the unknown because that's the part that's the universe's job in the co-creative process and manifesting. That's the world unseen where you don't know the how things are going to happen, and you're not meant to. But most people panic. And so when the bend comes, people try and swim back to the straight. You know, they try and get out of the river, they resist, they hold on, and they will not go through that bend. But here's the problem. When you're on the river of life, to move further down the river, to move further up on those channels, to move more in who you need to become, you have to go through the bend or else you won't progress through the river. And this really comes down to also letting go of control. There's many things we cannot control. However, we can control our response to these bends. You know, when we think of them as a big scary monster, of course we're going to resist it and not want to do it, even though the bend, I promise you, is very loving. It's going to help you grow. It's going to show you things you need to see. It's going to take you on that quantum leap that's the next thing to go if you're ready to go on it. And here's the thing, it's your head that is talking you out from going around that bend, from embracing that challenge, from even getting excited about that challenge and that bend, you know, celebrating the bends in your life, because once you learn this stuff, you understand the power in that. But guess what? You don't manifest from your head. Your head only operates from the known. Manifestation, if you knew how to manifest the things that you wanted that are currently not in your life, then you would do it. If you knew from your head how to do that, then you would do it, but your head has no clue. This is when we invite in the loving unknown. And the loving unknown is on the other side of that challenge and the other side of that bend that life has naturally brought to you because you need to go through it to get to where you say you want to go. And so if you truly want to demonstrate that the universe has your back, you live in a friendly universe, you are guided, then I would invite you to lovingly go through the bend. And yes, it can be scary. And I'm not saying there won't be fear. I still have fear when bends come up. But I really bring courage to the situation, knowing I am guided, knowing I am protected, knowing that life is not going to bring me anything I cannot handle. And also it's bringing these things to me for growth, so I can continually become who I need to become, to do what I want to do in my life, to serve my purpose, to serve my mission. So here are some helpful tools or kind of reminders that are going to allow you to remember to do this. And the first one is to have awareness of this. You know, awareness is the first key to growth. You need to be aware if there's a problem, that there is a problem, and admit it. You need to be aware a lot of the time of how things work, because if chaos comes up, you're doing all this good and chaos comes up and you don't recognize this, of course you're going to freak out. Of course you're going to get scared. Of course you're going to go backwards. If you've noticed, you've kind of been in this perpetual loop where it's kind of the same thing over and over again, a little bit positive, then back to the old habits, a little bit of positive, then back to the old habits. Well, it's not surprising if you aren't aware that you need to embrace these bends and chaos, because you've probably been taught to run away from that your whole life. And so exposing yourself to videos like this and to these techniques is really what's going to help you. Remember, I mentioned it in other videos, infinite action, right? You can't just watch these things once and then expect it to be something that you're going to absorb or transmit out or whatever else. And so I would highly recommend either watching this video many, many times so it sinks in, having reminders for yourself to remember to embrace the bends, embrace the chaos, so long as you're doing the inspired things, so long as you are attuned to that and you're headed in the direction you want to be headed, then embracing the bends and the chaos is one of the best things you can do. So have that reminder. Now, one thing that is really going to help is to have more loyalty to the vision than the current physical circumstances. And for that to happen, you need to have a vision. A lot of people, they don't have something else to shift their focus onto when the storm starts coming up, or they don't give themselves a reason to persist and to stay grounded when the storm is here. So they just go back to the old, or they just allow the storm to kind of throw them about and don't do anything about it and allow the winds of life just to take them wherever. But when you have a North Star, when you have a vision, when you have something that just lights you up and you're reminding yourself of it often, you're tuning into it frequently, well then when that storm comes up, you're not going to forget that vision. And you'll know so long as you're going down that right path. The path of the vision that, oh yes, I need to embrace this, and I'm so excited about this vision, I'm willing to embrace the storms that come up, knowing that it's actually for my benefit, that these are the storms I have to weather in order to get to my vision. These are the storms life are bringing my way for a reason. It's not redundant. Now, one way to actually use the sense data to your benefit, if you are going to use it, is to develop a practice of appreciation, because what you appreciate appreciates. And to just do this throughout the day, you can do a rampage of appreciation, which comes from Abraham Hicks, where you just get really into it and start appreciating whatever just comes up in flow for about a minute or 3 minutes. But to do this throughout the day and to have an appreciation journal. What you give your attention to will multiply. What you focus on grows. What you appreciate appreciates, and it starts to elevate your inner world when you're being appreciative, because it's a very high energy. And when you're in that energy, more times than not, life will start bringing you things that match that energy. Another one is called a journal of positive confirmation, and this might be one of the most useful tools when it comes to reality creation that I can give you, because the journal of positive confirmation will start giving you the evidence of this stuff working. And what you do is, as you're learning these things, as you're applying these things, you are going to write down in a journal everything that kind of gives evidence for what you're doing. So synchronicities that start coming in, little manifestations that start coming in, even the storm coming in that you know is meant to clear things out to make a new level for you. You start jotting all of these things down, and it provides you the dots to connect that shows that this non-linear process is working. Most people are always looking for linear, A to B to C to D. That's not how life works. That's not how reality creation principles work. It is non-linear. It will be A to F to C to Z to K. But when you're connecting the dots in a positive confirmation journal, you will see that these are not random, that they are connected. You will see that your thoughts and your energy does matter, and that's a great way of putting it. It does matter, as in turns into matter. And you want to jot down the moments when this happens. Essentially, you're going to have a book full of evidence of the new life that you're moving into. And the more evidence you collect and the more you tune into that evidence, the more that starts coming in, till eventually you're just in that life now. And that's your new energetic history. Having a vision is going to help with all of this, to keep your focus on it, to light you up, to really help that inner world, and just so much. Like, actually knowing what you want and what you're going for is so valuable when it comes to reality creation, because you're a powerful creator. Your intention, attention, and your vision really does matter, turn into matter. So I will give you this video next that gives you a formula on how to create that vision and how to set it up in a very practical way so you actually start moving towards it.